Hi everyone, how's it going? First off, I just want to say thank you for having me. It's such a pleasure. I've never been to A&M, but I actually know a lot of people that went to school here and played sports here, so it's crazy. Once you finish college, how much smaller the world gets in some aspects, and in other aspects it gets a lot bigger, but for me, it's gotten smaller. The softball world, the athletic world, it's gotten smaller. And it's such a pleasure to be here. And I want to thank Sports Management Department, Jamie Lowe Price, for bringing me out here and being able to share my story, my softball story, and how I got to where I am today. So I want to just start. I like to have play this little game just to give you guys get you guys going. So I'm a softball player. I have a softball here. So we're going to play a game. When I catch this ball, I want you guys to clap. Okay? You guys ready? So everyone sit up nice and straight. Put the phones down. You need both hands for this. Okay, so throughout my presentation today, I'm going to throw this ball. I'm going to make sure I have you guys' attention. Don't be early. Timing's everything, right? In sports, you're early. There you go. Very nice, very nice. Okay, so in the sports world, in softball, timing is everything. And timing was everything for me in my career. I want to talk to you guys a little bit about just something that's been laid on my life, that's been laid on my heart. And it's helped me improve from this little girl right here on the left to the Olympic stage, to who I am today. And it's a quote that it just says, if you want something you have never had, you must be willing to do things you've never done. If you want something you have never had, you must be willing to do things you've never done. If you want something you've never had, you must be willing to do things you've never done. You must be willing to do things you have never done. So I'm going to ask you guys tonight, what are you willing to do? I started playing softball like a lot of people because my friends and my sisters played, and played just recreational sports. You know, everyone signs up, you come home from school with a flyer. We all got signed up, we all played, I got a uniform. As that kid right there. Most of the time I was lucky if I brought my glove to practice. So I usually forgot it at home. Unprepared. Not good. But luckily for me, I had an older sister. Her name is Jessica. And one day, she decided that she wanted to pitch. And Jessica was one of those kids that kind of right away, she could kind of do everything right away. It took me a little bit. It took me a little while to figure out how I was going to throw or how I was going to hit. But Jessica, she was the shortstop. She was older than me. She was really strong. I was a little bit slower, a little bit more of a later bloomer, and not really interested in sports right away. But my sister Jessica, she was good. She dominated. And one day she told my mom, she said, "Hey Mom, I want to pitch." And my mom said, "Okay, there's this guy out at our local fields. He's giving lessons. Let's get you a lesson." And she said, "Monica, you're going to catch. You are going to catch for her." So my sister, 3 years older than me, strong and athletic, and I had to catch for her. I was not having that. No. That ball hurts. She throws hard. She throws really hard. And I went behind home plate, and we go to this pitching lesson. And I sit back there, and I'm like trying to catch, but really what I'm really doing is I'm trying to miss every single ball because my hand was hurting every time I was trying to catch it, right? I was scared of the ball, I admit it. We all are at some point. Have a little bit of fear. And after every pitch, picked up the ball that I had missed on purpose, and I threw it back. But the most astounding thing happened that day to me. Because at the end of the lesson, the coach came up to me, and I'm taking off my gear, putting my equipment in a bag. And the coach says to me, "Monica." "Yeah, what's up? What do you want?" "I'm hungry. I want to go home. It's cold. My hand hurts and my knees hurt because I had to squat. I hate this sport. When is it snack time?" And he says, "Monica, have you ever thought about pitching?" I looked at him and was like, "No, I'm not pitching. I go home." But he created an opportunity. Opportunity. You never know when it comes. You never know when it's going to knock on your door or when you're going to be shoved through that door. He said, "Monica, why don't you start pitching? Why don't you try it?" Opportunity. If you want something you've never had, you must be willing to do things you've never done. At that age, I didn't know what I wanted. I didn't know what I needed to do. But I knew I didn't want to play right field the rest of my life. He said, "Monica, why don't you start pitching?" Opportunity. You can go one more. Actually, go back. Just go back one more. Opportunity. So, what did I do? I went home, and I didn't pick up a ball. I didn't try pitching for about a month, 2 months, and finally I said, "Mom, you know what? Maybe I'll try pitching. I really don't want to catch. I'm tired of catching Jessica. I'm going to try pitching." And she said, "Okay." So she's like, "Well, we know what Jessica's doing. Let's just copy her. Everyone has a favorite player, right? Whether it's Monica Abbott, LeBron James, Kevin Durant, Johnny Manziel, whoever your favorite player is, why not just copy what they do? Let's just copy them and see if we can do it." So I went out there and I copied her and I tried to do exactly what she did. And I said, "Okay, Mom, I kind of like this. I kind of get it. Maybe I can have a lesson. Do you think I could try pitching?" And my mom told me, "Okay." She said, "Monica, if you want something you've never had before, you must be willing to do things you've never done." And she said, "Monica, I'll give you a lesson, but you got to wash the car. You got to vacuum the car. You need to clean your room. You also need to clean the bathroom. And you need to clean out both junk drawers, and you have dish duty for the rest of the week." But I said, "Okay," because if you want something you've never had before, you're willing to do anything to get it, right? What are you willing to do? So I created a routine that took me to every level, and that's taken me through my entire career. When I first started pitching, it became a routine that I started with my mom who caught for me in the front yard, not at some fancy softball field, not at a fancy indoor complex, just whatever time we had, whatever equipment we had, whatever we had that day, that's what we used. So every day after school, I'd come home, I'd do my homework real quick, and then the next thing for me, I was out in the front yard. I was out in the middle of the street, and I would pitch for as much time as we had that day. And I created this routine that took me to travel ball. It took me on and on in my career. And eventually it took me to college at the University of Tennessee. But in order for me to get to college, I had to go through high school. And high school was a hard time for me because I learned that I needed something to set me apart. See, I had this work ethic, I had this routine, I was willing to do things that no one else was willing to do because I wanted something nobody else wanted. If you want something you've never had, you must be willing to do things you've never done. I needed something to set me apart. Go ahead, take a look to your left. Take a look behind you. See all these people? They're your friends. They're your family. Ah, gotcha. They're your friends. They're your family. They're your team. But in the end, they're also your competitors. How are you going to set yourself apart? What are you going to do? What are you willing to do? In high school, I decided that I needed to develop something that was untouchable. I had to do something that was better than anyone else. I didn't have to be great at everything, but I had to be great at one thing. I didn't have to be great at everything. I had to be great at one thing. So in my sport, I developed a rise ball, a pitch that goes like this, straight up, okay? That took me to the University of Tennessee. That took me to college. So I had to set myself apart from the people that I played high school ball with, people I traveled around the country playing sports with. What are you willing to do? If you want something you've never had before, you must be willing to do things you've never done. Once I got to Tennessee, is there any college athletes in here right now? Any college athletes? Ex-college athletes? College sports is hard, right? Who is tired all the time? Constantly tired, okay? Who's not a college athlete and you're still constantly tired? Right? Okay, college is hard work. It's a mental drain, it's a physical drain. Being an athlete and demanding the best of yourself. It's a hard job. If you want that success, if you want to be better than the person sitting to your right, to your left, behind you, you're willing to do those things that you've never done before. I'm going to tell you a little story for each of my years at Tennessee, just a little tidbit. My first year at Tennessee, I had a hard time. Yeah, there's an adjustment. Maybe I was homesick. Maybe it was the college life. It's just different. But I figured out that the people next to me had a hard time because for the first time in my life, other people in their world were doing things that no one else had done before. Other people were just as competitive as me. And it was shocking. I'll never forget my freshman year. It was one of our very first tournaments. We're in the championship game at the University of Hawaii. And pitching, it's like the third or fourth inning. And the catcher calls a sign, the coach calls this sign, and I shake it off. And I'm like, no, I'm not throwing it. No way. I'm not going to throw this pitch. If I throw this pitch, it's going to get hit. There's no way. I don't even believe in this pitch right now. I can't do this. This is the pitch that we need to throw. It's not that one. So I shake her off. She gives it to me again. And I shake her off. She gives it to me again. Over and over again. She just keeps giving me that pitch until finally my coach stands out of the dugout and she comes at me and she says, Monica. She points her finger at the circle and says, Monica, you throw the pitch I called. I looked at her like a deer in the headlights. struck. I can't throw that pitch. It's going to get hit. So, in my competitive nature, I threw the pitch that I knew I would get her out on. And I came off the field, and she said, "Monica, I called that pitch for a reason. I called that pitch because I've done the work. I know what she can hit and what she can't hit. I'm just as competitive as you. I know, I've studied, I've looked and looked and looked and looked, and I know what she's hitting, I know what she's hitting bad, I know what the count is. I'm playing to her weaknesses and your strengths. You have to trust me. I want to win more than you do." And I said, "You want to win more than me?" Who are your competitors? And what will set you apart? What are you willing to do? If you want something you've never had before, you must be willing to do things you've never done. If you want something you've never had before, you must be willing to do things you've never done. My sophomore year at Tennessee, we were pretty good. Made it to the Women's College World Series. Was an All-American my freshman year. I was feeling pretty good. Our team was good. My freshman year, I learned, wow, these people are just as competitive as me. They want to win just as bad as I do. They're willing to sacrifice. They're willing to practice. They're willing to study. They can taste success as much as I can. But I still thought the success of the team weighed on me. I still thought the success of my organization, the success of my family, the success of my team weighed on me. My sophomore year of college, I learned that as much as these people are my competitors, they will build the strongest house possible. Because you need other people to lift you up. You have to be able to communicate with others to be able to empower yourself. If you can empower others, you can empower yourself. I learned the we before the me. If you want something you've never had before, you must be willing to do things you've never done. What are you willing to do? Going into my junior year of college, I probably had the worst college year of my life, athletically. I had to deal with failure. Failure makes you hungry. But for me, it wasn't just a little bit of failure. It was up and down. It's like a roller coaster. I remember in SEC play, our team was actually doing really good. We're off the Women's College World Series the year before. Had a great year my sophomore year. Junior year comes along, people are starting to catch up. People are catching up to the talent level. People are catching up to my speed. They're catching up to that one defining pitch that I made to set me apart. But I didn't know it yet. I didn't know it until I was pitching in a game. We were first or second place in the league, pitching to a team in the lower level, lower half of the division. I go out the first inning, first pitch, home run. No big deal. Everyone gets a home run hit off of them. No big deal, right? Next batter comes up. She gets a hit. No big deal. I got this. Third batter comes up. Home run. 2 home runs. Okay. It's okay. It's okay. I got this. We're good. We're okay. Fourth batter gets up. Fifth batter gets up. On base. Sixth batter, another home run. Seventh batter, a home run. Eighth batter, I walked. Coach comes out and says, Monica. I said, yep, I'm pitching pretty bad. He's like, you're not pitching bad, you're pitching awful. He's like, this is the worst I've ever seen you pitch. This is the worst I've ever seen anyone pitch. He said, you know that number 8 batter that just hit a home run? This is the first game she's played in 3 years. She has a career batting average of 119. He said, I'm taking you out. I said, that's probably a good idea. But at that point, things changed. Because at that point, I had a choice. If you want something you've never had before, you have to be willing to do things you've never done. What was I willing to do? What choice was on my table right then? What was the choice that I had to make? I had just had the worst day of my life. What was the choice? See, the choice was at that point, I walked back into the dugout, and I could have done what I really, 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 really wanted to do. Throw over the water cooler, kick it, throw my glove on the field, pound the dugout, throw a big fit. I could have sat on the bench and sulked for the rest of the game. I could have not talked to anyone for the rest of the day. But at that point, I had a choice. And it wasn't an easy choice, because that's what I wanted to do. That's what I felt like doing. I felt like letting the bad get worse. But I told myself at this point, the most powerful thing that I can do, the most powerful thing that I can do is to pick someone else up, is to empower someone else. I am going to empower my team. I am going to empower the person sitting next to me so that when they get better, I will get better. I'm going to empower the person sitting behind me. I'm going to empower the person sitting to my left so that when they get better, I will get better. I will get better. I am going to empower my team. I am going to find every which way for them to get a hit. I'm going to be their biggest supporter. I'm going to be their best friend right now. I'm going to be able to be their biggest cheerleader. I'm going to hype them up so big right now, they could walk on the moon. They could walk on water. I will empower them for the team's success. Because when you teach someone else, when you empower someone else, it forces you to what? To get better. Because you close the gap. But it's up to you to make that gap bigger. What are you willing to do? It's up to you to make that gap bigger. It's up to you to make the gap bigger. What are you willing to do? If you want something you've never had before, you must be willing to do things you've never done. Okay, you can press the next one. After college, I went on to the national team. And again, I asked myself, what am I willing to do? What can I do to be a difference? This is actually a state report that I did in like 3rd grade or 4th grade. Funny, right? And at the time when I wrote this report, softball wasn't in the Olympics. But I didn't know that. I knew I was going to play in the Olympics before I made the Olympic team. But that's not my point today. My point today is how can I get better? What am I willing to do? Because now I'm wearing the most powerful 3 letters across my chest. Now I don't only represent a college. Now I don't only represent my friends and my family and my teammates. Now I represent a country. Now I represent a dream. What am I willing to do? How can I separate myself? If you want something you've never had before, you must be willing to do things you've never done. So I told myself the biggest 2 things that I could do. The first one, communication. Small, right? Kind of a small thing. You'd think like, oh, I'm training for the Olympics. I'm going to go lift 1,000 pounds, do some dumbbell curls, I'm going to go clean, 350, no big deal. I'll do 1,000 lunges a day. I'll throw 300 pitches a day. I'll practice for 10 hours. But no. See, the practice is going to be there. But what are the small things? What are the things that are going to change? And it's the communication. I told myself, how can I communicate better? How can I find a way to not only get information from myself and from watching and looking and asking questions, how can I ask the right questions? How can I ask the questions that will now empower me? And who am I going to ask? And then I looked down on my chest and I said, oh, that's easy. I'm going to ask the USA. I'm going to ask the people that represent America. I'm going to ask the people that have represented in any way, whether it's my grandma who's never played a sport in her life, or a fan. What is their opinion? What are they seeing that I'm not seeing? What are the questions that I could ask to be a better athlete? Questions that prepared me to play on the biggest stage, to play in the Olympics, to follow a childhood dream. Questions that I'd replayed in my mind so many times, that I'd practiced so many different ways, in so many different circumstances, that when it actually happened, when I was actually standing on the field, throwing to that last batter in the perfect game, I'd already been there. I'd already done it 1,000 times. I already knew every way this could play out. I already knew how everyone was going to react. What are you willing to do? If you want something you've never had before, you must be willing to do things you've never done. During the Olympics, I told myself, I want to be the one. It's the number 2. I said, I want to be the one. I want to be the one. I want to be so prepared. I want to know everything that I can do, that there's no question, there's no thought, there's nothing. I want to be the one. Pick me. Pick me. I want to be the one. I want to be the one. Choose me. Pick me. I'll be the one. I will be the one. I will do it. If you want something you've never had before, you must be willing to do things you've never done. Go. So I ask you guys, what are you willing to do? I went from a small town in Northern California, in agriculture, salad bowl capital of the world. Literally, salad, lettuce. All types of lettuce. Iceberg, romaine, green leaf, I think kale. Every type of lettuce, literally. Small town. What are your circumstances? What type of success do you want? What do you want your story to be? What's your legacy? What are you going to leave behind? What are you going to leave behind at Texas A&M? What are you going to leave behind in your family? What are you going to leave behind in your hometown? What are you willing to do to make sure that it's better than when you left? What is the success story that you want to have? What are you willing to do? If you want something you've never had before, you must be willing to do things you've never done. Created a routine. It took me all the way to college. I still use it to this day. To this day. What is your routine? What are you going to do that's going to separate yourself? How are you going to make a bigger gap between you and the person sitting next to you? From your teammates, from your coworkers, from your friends? How are you going to empower the people next to you so that it challenges you? How are you going to empower the person next to you? How are you going to empower other people so that it makes you better? So that it challenges you, so that you're not satisfied? What are you willing to do? If you want something you've never had, you must be willing to do things you've never done. Softball changed my life, all because someone gave me an opportunity. They planted a seed. They created an opportunity for me, and I ran with it, and I haven't looked back. My name is Monica Abbott. I currently play for the Chicago Bandits, and I played in the 2008 Olympic team, and I play softball professionally. Thank you.